You can't even watch the news these days without hearing the word credit crisis. In this two-part video series, each video being about 5 minutes long, I am going to try and review the facts. I'm also going to try and keep it in such a simple format that you won't need an economics degree to understand exactly where our nation stands. Will it happen? Yes, unfortunately, we will have a credit crisis. Why will it happen? Our national debt has exploded 200% since the year 2000. In 2011, our national debt is projected to hit $15 trillion. The problem with that is that the interest payment on that $15 trillion is going to eat up a huge part of our government's annual revenue. That means there's very little money left over for other vital programs. Well, perhaps we can just work our way out of this $15 trillion hole and start running budget surpluses. Unfortunately, in the last 40 years, our nation has only run a budget surplus for years. At best, in 1999, we ran a $230 billion budget surplus under Bill Clinton. That was after one of the best economic booms we've seen in decades. And again, mind you, $230 billion, imagine how long it would take our nation to pay off $15 trillion in debt at a $230 billion clip. We were only able to accomplish that 1 year. Personally, we're running bigger and bigger deficits each and every year, and this interest burden and other factors are going to push us to the point to where we are running deficits into perpetuity. I do not believe that in my lifetime we will even see 1 year where our nation will run a budget surplus again. So we won't work ourselves out of this $15 trillion hole. In fact, we will keep falling further and further and further into debt each and every year. Another problem is that Americans are drawing more in entitlement than they're paying in. In a recent economic study, if you took a couple that was retiring in the year 2011 that had earned on average as a couple $100,000 a year, over their lifetime they've paid about $100,000 into Medicare. They will be receiving out about $350,000 worth of benefits. You can't continue down a path where you're paying in a fraction of what you'll be drawing out. And mind you, from a demographic standpoint, baby boomers are just now starting to retire. And that is another issue. As baby boomers retire, they are no longer paying into the system, they are drawing out of the system. So it's a double whammy where you've got actual funds flowing out of the system. The Congressional Budget Office had projected that Social Security would be receiving more in revenues than it pays out through the year 2016. That was wrong. In fact, right now in the year 2010, we were already starting to pay out more than we were taking in. So that's just going to escalate year after year after year as more and more people retire. Can we avoid a credit crisis? Unfortunately, no. Well, why not? First of all, we won't cut Social Security payments. In 2010, February, there was a budget panel that was formed to figure out how to make structural reform so that we might be able to balance our budget. Over the course of a year, that 18-member panel proposed to raise the eligibility age for Social Security by 2 little years over the course of 6 decades. This won't even impact the next generation. It'll impact generations 2 or 3 down the line. 2 or 3 generations down the line might be impacted by this. 2 little years. They couldn't even agree on that. So they will not cut Social Security payments either, or you would see rioting in the streets as we've seen in Greece. Perhaps we can cut Medicare and Medicaid benefits. That would not be a popular political decision either. You can imagine cutting medical benefits to the elderly. We won't default on our nation's payments. If we default on our nation's interest payments, we will have a financial collapse. That's exactly what we're trying to avoid. The fourth reason we can't avoid it is that we won't run a budget surplus. As I just mentioned before, we've only run one meaningful budget surplus in the last 40 years, and that was $230 billion. We're spending $230 billion at the blink of an eye these days. Well, when will this credit crisis happen? It's going to happen when interest rates rise to the level where our tax revenues no longer cover three basic expenses: Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and interest on our national debt. So I'm not talking about defense spending and Homeland Security and the Justice Department and the Agricultural Department and all the other things that our government spends money on. We'll have those expenses, but I'm talking about our revenues not covering these three basic items: Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and interest on our national debt. In the second video, I'll be covering exactly where that interest rate can come down to. What can we afford to pay? When might we possibly see this problem? So the second video is really critical. I'd encourage you to watch it.